Hello everyone, welcome back to another project analysis series. This time we are going to do things slightly differently. Instead of analysing one project on its own, we are going to compare two upcoming launches, Amberwood at Holland and Dunearn House. Why compare these two projects? First, both are expected to enter the market within a similar period. So for buyers considering a home within this price range, the comparison will naturally come up. Second, both sit within established and highly recognized locations. Amberwood carries the Holland and District 10 positioning with its lifestyle appeal, private residential environment, and future Holland Plain transformation. Dunearn House sits along the Bukit Timah Dunearn corridor with stronger MRT proximity, established schools, and the future Turf City transformation. They are not identical projects, but that is precisely why the comparison is useful. Buyers are not simply deciding between the two developments, they are deciding which set of advantages is worth paying a premium for. And that brings us to the central question for this episode. A project may have a high per square foot, but does that automatically mean it is overpriced? Or should we be looking at the premium buyers are being asked to pay relative to the alternatives available today? Let us begin with the land cost. The Dunearn House site was acquired at around 1410 per square foot per plot ratio, while the Amberwood site was acquired slightly higher at 1432 per square foot per plot ratio. Based only on the winning bids, both developers entered at approximately the same land value. But the tender result tells us a more nuanced story. The Dunearn House site attracted a total of 9 bids. The winning bid of 1410 per square foot per plot ratio was only about 4% higher than the second highest bid of approximately 1360 per square foot per plot ratio. Several other bids also came within a relatively close range. This suggests that multiple developers arrived at a broadly similar assessment of what the site was worth. Amberwood was different. Simland's winning bid was at 1432 per square foot per plot ratio, but the second highest bid was 1172 per square foot per plot ratio, while the third bid came in at around 1061 per square foot per plot ratio. Simland's offer was therefore about 22% higher than the next bidder. So while the two winning land bids were similar, the market conviction behind them was not. Dunearn House land value was supported by a relatively tight cluster of competing bids, while Amberwood's land reflected a much more bullish assessment by Simland. Of course, this does not mean that Simland overpaid, but buyers should not interpret the two land bids in exactly the same way. Two of the biggest concerns buyers have in today's new launch market are whether prices have become overpriced and whether too much future supply could affect their eventual exit. For part 1 of this series, we will focus on whether prices are overpriced. And before we compare the projects further, we need to define what overpriced actually means. A high per square foot does not automatically mean that a project is overpriced. A development may deserve a higher price because of better connectivity, stronger amenities, freehold tenure, efficient layouts, or scarcity. The more important question is actually the premium paid. How much more are buyers being asked to pay compared with the alternatives available today? And is that premium supported by something that future buyers will still recognize? So throughout this analysis, we are not just asking whether the per square foot is high, we are asking what are buyers paying extra for, how much is the advantage worth, and will the next buyer still be willing to pay for it? For Dunearn House, the closest benchmark we would have is 4th Avenue Residences. Both are 99-year leasehold government land sales development. Both sit within the same broader Bukit Timah and Dunearn corridor, and both offer access to 6th Avenue MRT. 4th Avenue Residence land was actually acquired in 2017 at 1,540 per square foot per plot ratio. Dunearn House was acquired in 2025 at approximately 1410 per square foot per plot ratio. So despite being purchased 8 years later, Dunearn House land bid was actually lower. The tender results make this comparison even more meaningful. The next 4 bids for 4th Avenue Residences range from around 1418 to 1510 per square foot per plot ratio. That means 5 developers were prepared to pay at least 1418 per square foot per plot ratio for a 6th Avenue site in 2017. and this was slightly above Dunearn House winning bid 8 years later. So Dunearn House land was not only cheaper than 4th Avenue, it was cheaper than what 5 developers were willing to pay for 4th Avenue. From a land cost perspective, Dunearn House therefore appears to have entered on a relatively defensive pricing. But of course, a defensive land cost does not automatically mean an attractive launch price. The developer can still place a substantial premium on top of that cost. So the next question is, what happened to buyers who purchased 4th Avenue residences at launch? 4th Avenue launched at an average of 2,397 per square foot. Its resale transactions later averaged approximately 2,470 per square foot in 2024 and 2,522 per square foot in 2025. Price did increase, but the appreciation was relatively modest compared with the premium buyers had already paid for the direct MRT access and the Bukit Timah address and surrounding amenities. Around 25% of the recorded resale transactions over the last year were unprofitable. This highlights a recurring risk within the prime and central locations. Buyers may pay heavily for convenience, prestige, and a brand new product. But when the unit returns to the resale market, the next buyer has more alternative. They may not be willing to pay the same premium again. So therefore, the lesson is not that 4th Avenue is a poor project. The lesson is that much of its strongest value proposition has already been priced in at launch. The resale performance also differed by unit type. The unprofitable transactions were concentrated around the 1 and 2 bedrooms, while the 3 and 4 bedrooms achieved more consistent, although still measured annualized gains of 2.14% and 2.76% for the 4 and 3 bedroom respectively. Most of the buyers of the larger units entered at around 2003 to 2004 per square foot and later exited around 2007 to 2008 per square foot. That works out to an average of $344 per square foot. This suggests that family-sized units had a clearer and deeper resale buyer pool. Families value the schools, MRT access, space, and Bukit Timah location beyond the rental yield alone, while the smaller units had a different demand profile. 1 and 2 bedrooms are generally more investor-led. These buyers tend to focus on entry quantum, rental yield, and competing opportunities. At 4th Avenue residences, the rental yields are about 3 to 4%. So if resale prices rise faster than the rent, the yield will get compressed. So investors may then look elsewhere for a better return. The internal supply also mattered. 4th Avenue residences had 164 one-bedroom units and 156 two-bedroom units. By comparison, there were 122 three-bedroom units and 34 four-bedroom units. Almost 2/3 of the developments consisted of 1 and 2 bedroom units, so smaller unit owners faced both a narrow investor-led buyer pool and a heavy internal competition when they eventually sold. So for both Dunearn House and Amberwood at Holland, this means that project pricing alone is not enough. It's important to look at the unit mix, the layout efficiency, and the depth of the eventual resale market will also matter. The second reason for 4th Avenue's more measured performance was also the premium paid at launch. A useful comparison is actually Treasure at Tampines, which also launched in 2019. 4th Avenue residents offered a much stronger location proposition. It sits directly beside 6th Avenue MRT. Treasure at Tampines is approximately a 12-minute walk from the nearest Simei MRT. At launch, 4th Avenue sold at 2,406 per square foot, while Treasure at Tampines sold at approximately 1,339 per square foot. That represented a premium of roughly 80%. Today, the gap has actually narrowed to 43%. Of course, the buyer considering Treasure at Tampines may not be exactly the same buyer considering 4th Avenue residences. The locations, lifestyles, and buyer profiles are different. But buyers still compare what the same budget can purchase elsewhere. Some may prioritize centrality and direct MRT access. Others may choose a larger layout, an additional bedroom, or a more usable space in the outside central region. The narrowing price gap suggests that 4th Avenue's early buyers had already paid a substantial premium for its convenience and location. Meanwhile, the market increasingly recognized the value offered by more affordable alternatives. The issue was not 4th Avenue's high per square foot on its own. The issue was how much of its advantage had already been priced in. Another useful comparison is also Royalgreen. Royalgreen is about a few minutes more from 6th Avenue MRT, and like 4th Avenue resident, it was developed by Allgreen and launched in 2019. Royalgreen is a freehold. However, being slightly further, it also means that this gives buyers a clear trade-off. 4th Avenue offered stronger MRT convenience, while Royalgreen offered the freehold tenure. At launch, Royalgreen carried approximately a 14% premium compared to 4th Avenue residences. Today, the gap has actually reduced to 5.87%. This suggests that the market has become more willing to price a newer 99-year project closer to a nearby freehold development when the product, location and convenience are strong. But the narrowing gap may also make Royalgreen more interesting to buyers with a longer holding period. When the premium for freehold tenure becomes relatively small, buyers may actually receive greater protection from lease decay while still benefiting from the same broader Bukit Timah location. Also, it's important to note that Royalgreen's recent resale activity has been limited. Only 7 units changed hands over the last year. Appreciation was also below 1%, and one transaction recorded a loss. The low volume does not prove that Royalgreen will outperform over time or underperform over time, but it suggests that some original buyers entered with a longer-term horizon, focusing more on rental income, tenure, and value preservation than a quick resale gain. So for buyers considering Dunearn House or Amberwood at Holland, nearby freehold alternatives cannot be ignored. The question is no longer whether freehold is always better, but it's whether the price gap is small enough for the additional tenure to become worthwhile. The next question is, what happens if buyers miss Dunearn House? Amberwood at Holland is one alternative. Another option is to wait for the next launch within the Turf City transformation. But the tender results show strong and sustained developer confidence in the Bukit Timah area. We first saw this with 4th Avenue residences where 5 developers were prepared to pay at least 1,418 per square foot per plot ratio in 2017. Dunearn House later attracted 9 bids within a relatively close range. The adjacent Turf City plot then attracted a total of 6 bids. Every bid came in above the 1,410 that Dunearn House was bidded at, and the winning bid reached 1,624 per square foot per plot ratio. That is around 15% higher. This was not just because one developer was aggressive, it was across multiple tenders. Developers have repeatedly competed closely and placed increasingly high values on the area. So buyers who wait for the next Turf City launch may not necessarily receive a lower entry price. The next project will begin from a higher land cost base. Of course, that does not make Dunearn House attractive at any price, but it creates a reference point for what may replace it. For Amberwood, the situation is different. Simlian secured the first Holland Plain site at 1,432 per square foot per plot ratio. It later returned as the sole bidder for the subsequent plot at 1,491 per square foot per plot ratio. This shows there is some confidence in the precinct, but the key question is, could future land prices in Holland Plain fall? It could possibly. As more land plots are released, developers may become more selective and future bids could soften. But based on the 2 tenders so far, a drastic reset is unlikely to appear. The subsequent plot was still valued above Amberwood's original land cost, and Simlian may also approach the site differently because it operates as both developer and builder. This can give it greater control over construction costs, layout efficiency, and selling content. We have seen this capability in its recent developments. Emerald of Katong sold almost 99% during its launch weekend. At Resale Tampines, buyers accepted selected units close to or above $2,000 per square foot. Both projects showed Simlian's ability to optimize the harmonized layout and manage the overall quantum sensitively enough for buyers to accept a relatively high per square foot. So perhaps Simlian sees value in Holland Plain that other developers are less prepared to price in today, but its conviction alone does not make Amberwood attractive. This result will depend on whether it can convert its land cost into efficient layouts, acceptable quantum, and a launch premium that buyers consider justifiable. So what is a premium worth paying for? A useful reference is what we have seen recently in Tampines. Binary residences, a mixed-use development along the downtown line sold at average of 2,551 per square foot. Parktown Residence, an integrated development in Tampines North sold at average of 2,319 per square foot. Both commanded premiums because buyers were paying for more than just the unit. They were paying for transport connectivity, retail convenience, amenities, and the scarcity of an integrated or mixed-use product. These examples show that buyers can accept a sizable premium when the advantages are tangible and they're difficult to replicate. And so, if we take an average of 2,004 per square foot, a premium of below 40% may provide a useful reference point in some comparisons. It should not be treated as a universal safe zone because the quality of the benchmark matter, the unit type matters, the layout matters, and the total quantum matters. And the future buyer pool also matters. A premium must then be assessed against what the buyer is actually receiving. There are two separate decisions. First, is the project premium justified? And second, is the specific unit premium justified? A project may be reasonably priced overall, but an individual unit may still offer poor value because of an inefficient layout, weak facing, excessive floor premium, or limited resale demand. For example, a highly efficient 3-bedroom unit may justify a higher per square foot than a larger but poorly planned home. A family-sized unit with a broad own-stay buyer pool may support its premium better than a small investor-led unit with weak yield and heavy internal competition. So buyers should not stop after deciding which project is better. They still need to identify which unit provides the best balance between quantum, usable space, and future demand. Most importantly, the premium must match the buyer's holding horizon. A buyer planning to exit within a few years has less room for error. The market may not have enough time to recognize the value that was paid upfront. A buyer with a longer holding horizon may be more willing to pay for a freehold tenure, future transformation, or a stronger location. It's always easier to say that buyers should simply purchase the cheapest project, but the cheapest option may not offer the right layout, location, unit type, or future buyer demand. The better approach is to determine a walkaway price. At what price is the premium still supported by the project's advantages? And at what point are you paying so much upfront that future buyers may struggle to recognize the same value? That answer will differ from one buyer to another. Every buyer has a different budget, purpose, unit requirements, holding period, and exit plan. So to round it up, neither Dunearn House nor Amberwood at Holland should be judged by per square foot alone. The more important question is the premium buyers are being asked to pay relative to the alternatives available today. Dunearn House benefits from stronger developer validation, direct MRT access, and a lower land cost base compared with the next Turf City plot. Amberwood offers the Holland address, first mover positioning, and a developer that has shown it can optimize layouts and manage overall quantum effectively. Both may justify a premium, but that premium still needs to be supported by the unit type, layout efficiency, buyer demand, and intended holding period. So a project can be considered expensive but still offer value. It becomes overpriced when the premium paid today is greater than what future buyers are likely to recognize tomorrow. Before deciding, determine your own walkaway price. Know what you're paying extra for, know how long you're prepared to hold, and know who is likely to buy the unit from you next. Because the objective is not just buying the cheapest, but to buy it at the right premium. So if you're considering Dunearn House, Amberwood at Holland, or the surrounding alternatives, feel free to reach out. We can compare the available unit types, layouts, benchmark, and the likely exit market before determining what premium is actually worth paying. And in part 2, we will look beyond the launch pricing and examine whether the future supply in Turf City and Holland Plain can be supported by sufficient buyer demand when these projects eventually enter the resale market. If you like our content, please do like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to reach out to us for in-depth one-to-one analysis. Bye!